course, my name is Dr. Keith McNally, and I'm here with Emilia, with the
Mhm.
CEO of Fox International Consulting. Emilia, thank you so much for joining me. And
Thank you
tell
for
us,
having me.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right, so I am an almost finished PhD for English from the University of Aberdeen. I have been working in the education field since I was in high school, and currently I'm the CEO of Fox International Consulting, and we provide the kind of best learning solutions to kind of international education with a twist from Finland. That's where I'm from.
That's awesome. So you said your PhD is in what exactly?
In English, I'm working on a thesis regarding the kind of problems of expression in the work of William Shakespeare. And hopefully after this, I'll be able to kind of translate that into, or kind of transfigure it into something for education, like the problems of expression when it comes to the classroom.
So now I'm curious because I'm a doctor as well. So what got you motivated to get your doctorate? So that's a unique challenge altogether. And writing a dissertation, I know, can be a struggle. So what what was your motivation and how's that going?
Well, to be fair, I've always been a kind of a high achiever in the classroom. So I'd always, because there are some people who don't even think about kind of where they want to go to university and that sort of thing. I'd had a plan since I was like 5.
Cool.
So I always knew that I wanted to go to university. It was never even there was never even a question about it. In that sense, I've been incredibly privileged on my learning journey, because I'd never thought that there would be these massive challenges in my way. So when it came to me finishing my Master of Arts from Uni of Aberdeen, I was just approached by one of my professors, and he was like, "Have you thought about doing a postgrad study on anything?" I was like, "Yeah, I would really want to do a PhD if I could." And he was like, "Okay, well, let's do it." Um, so I was kind
Good
of
for
like,
you.
"Oh, okay, it's
Yeah.
happening. Okay, all right."
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I have to take this chance because it was offered to me. Um, like most people who have done a PhD would know, it's not easy in the slightest. I've been working full time all the way throughout my PhD, so it's been ridiculously energy consuming. But I know that with obtaining that degree, I can do so many things, especially in my field. People really respect PhDs in the kind of education export industry, if you can call it. So I know that there's something really, really good to be coming from this. And to be fair, when it's not ridiculously stressful, it's really interesting. So, it's there's a silver lining there as well.
Well, good. I hope so, because if it wasn't interesting, it would be more difficult than you think. I know because I've been there. So I wish you all the best as you continue that. But I know you came here and we wanted to talk about project-based learning because it's kind of a big thing now in education. And so let's kind of get started with that. And so project-based learning, brings about a lot of challenges, but it also brings about a lot of benefits, I think, both for the teacher and for the learner. Can you talk about that a bit from your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think why project-based learning is a really good method to be used in the classroom is that, first and foremost, I believe that um, learning doesn't happen in a vacuum. You need other people around, and project-based learning inherently involves interacting with other people. So it kind of forces anyone to be a part of a bigger group and to interact, and through that interaction to learn together. And it's a really, I would say, natural way for children to learn, because it is kind of experimental, and you can, you can chat with each other whilst you're doing it, and you can test different things, and like, oh, is this good? And it is this, it kind of engages with that natural curiosity that a child would have. And that's definitely one of the benefits, to kind of boost the motivation of children.
Mhm.
And not all children in general, but especially those I find who find kind of traditional learning models to be quite difficult. I find that project-based learning is really, um, I guess, useful in that sense, because it does motivate those who find things to be incredibly challenging otherwise, because it gives the child the opportunity to kind of choose their own path, how they want to go about it, and then to, in best cases at least, it gives them the opportunity to work to their own level. So if you're really struggling with certain areas, you do the best you can in those areas, then improve in somewhere else. So it does give every single student the opportunity to kind of experience success, which I find it to be really important. Um, Lastly, I would say that the kind of primary task of the school is to prepare children for life after school. And especially what I've seen here in Finland, our national core curriculum is built on these transversal competences that kind of engage with the kind of real life skills that you need, regardless of the subject that we're doing. So in a project-based learning model, you can combine different subjects, which is all well and good, but it also gives us the opportunity to really engage with these kind of real life, I could say 21st century skills, sort of learning to learn, multimedia literacy, communication, group work, all of these things that, as grown adults in the workforce, we always need them. And it is a really kind of natural way to kind of engage with these skills that very often might be lost in the kind of subject-based learning models.
Right. And your talk on traditional, teaching methodologies, what we call here in the States, stand and deliver. The teacher
Mhm.
literally, stands up in front of the classroom and then delivers a certain content. And then
Yeah,
students are given like an activity to kind of reinforce what they've learned. And if they don't understand, they raise their hand. But I like what you said regarding, the PBL model, whereas, it really is an engagement process. We talk about, having some backstory or given a situation, a real world problem per se, then teaching communication and collaboration and critical and creative thinking is all on target with what you're talking about. So I applaud everything that you're doing. But we also know that with the good comes the bad, and meaning that there are challenges that teachers face, and maybe even students that face, when we're trying to transition into this kind of holistic conceptual model for teaching and learning. So have you come across any challenges in the classroom that pertain specifically to project learning?
definitely. More broadly, I could say that one of the biggest issues in the classroom in general is the fact that you've got 30 children with 30 different sets of needs.
Mm.
And in order to kind of cater to all of that, you really have to kind of think about what each of them needs, and then think about, oh, what are the resources, and how can I, one person, be in 30 different places at one time. And with project-based learning, I think in in a classroom that's not used to this, when you kind of start with it, it's kind of emphasized that lack of resources, especially human resource, that comes into play with the resource for different kind of learning assistants and such being really minimal in most places. So to be able to kind of be there and to support those who need support when it's kind of, I could say, less kind of traditionally organized. It's really easy to kind of go from place to place and to kind of see everything when everybody's in the same classroom. But for me, especially, because when I have my children do these projects, they are all over the school. So to be able to have that individualized support for each child, whilst letting them do their own thing in different areas of the school, it's definitely a challenge, and it takes a bit of guts, I'd say, for the first time, to just kind of let go of that kind of
Control.
that dynamic
Yeah.
of, yeah, exactly, because the normal kind of dynamic in the classroom is teacher being kind of boss, and the students listening. And this, like, project-based learning kind of flips it all upside down. The students are kind of in control of what they want to learn, what they want to do, how they would want to show you that they've learned something. And you're there to support, you're there to assess, but ultimately you kind of need to let go of those reins. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is really outside of the classroom, and it's the school, kind of school culture in a whole. There can be immense lack of support when it comes to these what can I call them, more creative methods of learning. And it's not that they're bad ways to learn, I would say, on the contrary, but because it requires the kind of restructuring of what we know teaching to be. That's where the biggest difficulty is. And also going even further outside of the school, in the universities where teaching is taught to future educators. The teaching at university level doesn't always support PBL as a strategy. It's starting to be more commonplace, thankfully, but a lot of the instruction there goes kind of towards the stand and deliver methodology still. So a teacher really has to find ways to learn about these things from wherever they can. I've been really kind of privileged in a sense that both of my parents are teachers, and they're really kind of on point with these kind of modern work and teaching methodologies, and they've always kind of embraced that. So I've kind of learned from my parents as I've gone on, and because of who they are and what they do, my kind of, you could say, my bubble of education has always been really kind of progressive. So in that sense, it's been quite easy for me personally to find the ways to do, and I've always found somebody to ask, and people have always been quite innovative around me. So it would be really challenging if I considered not having that support system of educators who are kind of breaking these boundaries already.
Wow. And so we've talked about, the good and the bad, but then you talked about, possibly changing the culture. You talked about breaking boundaries and the culture of education, and, flipping the classroom. And these things can be kind of scary for somebody who's,
Yeah.
really comfortable, and I'm going to use the comfortable word, with traditional, teaching methods. Let me be the boss of the classroom. Let me do my thing, and then, pass on the baton and the responsibility of our students to be uh, just be responsible for their own learning. And so I guess we're seeing more and more that that's really, one, not very efficient, and two, not working very well, at all.
Mm.
Because earlier you said we really want students to be prepared for 21st century jobs in a 21st century way, meaning being able to, you know, talk, being able to communicate, convey information, learn in different ways. We have a whole world of, digital media that is encroaching upon us for good or bad. And so our abilities to learn really have to expand beyond those traditional boundaries. And so I love everything that you're talking about, and it's of course near and dear to my heart. But there are also, with those, good and bad, the challenges. Teachers really need then a lot of support in the classroom if they're going to really use PBL effectively. It's not just going to be a classroom thing, it may need to be a school thing. Can you talk about what teachers may need in the classroom in order to do PBL effectively?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first and foremost thing would be um, it's difficult because these things that teachers really need very often come from outside of the teacher themselves, and the teacher might not have any say on whether or not this actually happens.
Mm.
But I think from kind of my own perspective and from others that I've spoken to, one of the key elements is a principal or school management in
Mhm.
general who is kind of brave enough to trust the teacher to do their own thing. In Finland, we're really we're trusted to know what we're doing, and there are so many places where that I've seen kind of internationally where it's kind of very rigid. There's a lot of teacher monitoring. There's a lot of kind of assessment of the classroom and the work that the teacher does, which is all well and good. I'm not saying that it shouldn't that the teacher shouldn't be held accountable for what they need to do, but um, that the establishment of this and the management of the school would kind of wholeheartedly trust that they have hired a teacher who's professional and who knows what they're doing. That's kind of the key thing for me, because there are so many ways of achieving the needs of the curriculum. This is especially for kind of international schools, perhaps private schools, who have kind of all these kind of needs that they have from the management point of view. The students need to do well, and in order to do well, the teaching is kind of held in this kind of rubric of what happens in the classroom, what needs
Right,
to happen. And I think that those same things, the same learning outcomes, can be achieved through so many different ways than stand and deliver.
right,
And PBL would be one of them. So yeah, I think one of the biggest kind of support systems a teacher needs is school management who approves of using this methodology. More and more of this is happening, which is amazing. And I've loved to kind of work with teachers who are kind of starting on this journey, and it is incredible. But there's a lot of work to be done in that area, I'd say. But once that is a given, once we've got support from the school management, things get a lot easier, I think. And in there, right then, you can start really focusing on what happens inside the classroom. And I think one of the biggest things inside the classroom for the teacher would be to have a really well put together, um, not just one lesson, but perhaps months of of training for the teachers and the students, of how to work in a group. I often tell my clients about a teacher who I met previously, who said to me, "Oh, I have my students sit together so they learn to work together."
Mm.
Some students might, but for most, you need to actually actively teach them how to work in a group. So it's been very kind of interesting to see some teachers come back to me being like, right, I tried this, but they were just chatting away and they weren't doing anything, and they were arguing and they were doing this and that. And yeah, so the one of the biggest tools that a teacher can have is the students' knowledge of how to work as a group.
Yes.
So that kind of group dynamic, group organization and operation tool needs to be passed from the teacher to the students in order for this to be successful. But once that's achieved, and the group understands kind of each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses, and they kind of have these roles within the group, it's very easy to find everybody something that they are very good at, that they can be successful at, and to bring their project to fruition, which it kind of, you know, is the point of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also say that another kind of structure to put into place, especially in schools where there are multiple classrooms of the same age group, or not even the same, but like around the same. I'm a big I'm a big advocate for like multi-grade teaching, like at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
but all kinds of co-teaching methods, I think would be a really good option for PBL, because that just gives, well, it fixes one of the issues, which is the kind of human resource,
Mm-hmm.
and it also brings together kids from different classrooms, and it's yet another thing to learn, that sometimes we encounter people who we need to work with whom we haven't worked with before. They might be younger, they might be older, they might know different things, they might not know things yet that I already know. So bringing all of these together, at maybe at a more kind of advanced stage of learning how to do PBL, it does bring a lot of kind of richness into the group dynamic, that kind of benefits both kind of high achieving students, as well as the kind of the students who are kind of challenged with kind of academic learning.
Mm-hmm.
It To have students come in who have learned in a different environment than you might find kind of these companionships of like, oh, okay, both of us struggle with this, and oh, both of us are very good at this. So there are these opportunities to finding camaraderie, I'd say, which always kind of boosts student morale as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a lot. So wow.
I'm sorry,
But
I
it,
could be talking about my faces.
I know it's okay, and I can do the same, and so we can actually tell that this is something that we're both passionate about. But I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that um, I think we assume as educators or teachers in the classroom that students know how to do certain things, and so one of the things that it's critical for the success of PBL to work in the classroom is collaboration. It's kind of built into, it's part of the process. You know, we want students to be able to talk to each other, collaborate, work well, share ideas, but unless you come from a house full of siblings, and that may even be problematic, you're not going to really, you don't, you can't do that automatically in the classroom. It's not an automatic thing. And so just like you said, though, that skill in and of itself, just how to sit still and listen to somebody talk. Two, how to share ideas in the right way at the right time. Two, just be and let everybody share, and not argue, saying, well, that's a stupid idea, because that kids easily, will put somebody else down or laugh at somebody else. And that's the nature of being a child. Maybe it's not, I don't know anymore, because I'm just too old. But but at the same time, we can't let that happen. So we have to structure that teamwork, that collaborate. We have to teach it. We just have to teach it. Or else if we don't teach it, they'll continue with what they know, because we only do things based on what we know to do. And if you only know how to do things one way, put somebody down or challenge somebody all the time, not share ideas, you're going to continue to take those ideas, that behavior with you, and you're never going to be successful. So I applaud you to say, we actually have to teach our young folk how to actually work as a team, because without that, really the whole, maybe even the essence of PBL isn't going to be as effective as it could be without that. So wow. Thank you so much. Thank you
No
so much
worries.
for all of that. And there were so many pieces of this conversation that we could have just taken and, hey, let's talk about this for an hour. Hey, let's talk about this for an hour. But that would probably, but that would probably be, one of us would have to charge each other, because that's a lot of information. And so talk about Fox International Consulting. So are you do you just work in certain geographic regions on the planet, or are you trying to promote your business? Do you want to promote your business? This would
Oh,
be an opportunity to do so.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we work worldwide. Our network is currently in the Middle East, in the Arabian Gulf area. But we've been working with clients from pretty much every continent by now. And we do bring these very accessible, low threshold teacher training and professional development services to any operational culture, whether it's different curriculums, different types of school, state school, private school, either
How,
way.
how does somebody get in touch with you?
We've got a website, www.foxicon.fi, or they can find me on Instagram or YouTube. I can send you my handles if you want to put them down.
Absolutely. I will put them in the description inside the YouTube video. Absolutely.
Yeah, and yeah, you can also catch me by email, ceo.foxicon@gmail.com.
Okay.
We can put it down there as well.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate everything that you've given me, for one, and our audience is another, and hopefully we'll get the chance to do this again. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been incredible.